I'm John, I'm 82 years old, and this is my love, Margaret. I call her Maggie. And there's a quiet kind of regret that only shows up when the house gets too silent, when you realize how close you came to losing the one person who saw your whole life. I'm sitting at the same kitchen table we bought in 1971. The edge is worn where my arm always rests. I didn't notice that wear happening. None of the damage ever announced itself. We've been married 58 years. That number sounds solid, safe, but it hides a lot.
I'm Margaret. I'm 79. When people hear how long we've been married, they smile like it's proof of something. Endurance, success. Some mornings, I look at him across this table and think about how many times we almost became strangers without meaning to. Not from betrayal, not from shouting, from something quieter, from choosing the next thing instead of the moment we were in.
At this age, time feels different. It doesn't stretch, it presses. Every doctor appointment, every funeral, every empty chair reminds you the future is no longer generous. That's why we're talking now. Not to settle scores, not to explain ourselves, just to say out loud what we didn't say when it mattered.
We didn't marry young because we were reckless. We married young because it felt right. I was 21. John was 24. He had a steady job at the utility company. I worked the front desk at a small medical office. We didn't talk about dreams the way people do now. We talked about rent, groceries, whether we could afford a second-hand couch. It felt responsible. And it was.
I believe providing was love. I still think it mattered, but I confused that with presence. I worked overtime because that's what men did. That's what my father did. You don't question what keeps the lights on. I told myself there would be time later. Later to talk, later to rest, later to notice the look on her face when she stopped asking me how my day was.
I noticed the change before he did. I always did. At first it was small, dinner getting quieter, conversations turning practical. Did you pay the bill? Can you pick up milk? Not unkind, just empty. I told myself marriage had seasons, that this was normal, that wanting more conversation was childish. So I swallowed it.
When the kids came, it got easier to hide. Busy houses don't echo. We had 2 boys, good kids, loud kids. I came home tired. They came running. Margaret handled everything else. I thought we were a team, and we were, but I didn't notice she was carrying the heavier side of the weight.
I didn't feel abandoned. That word came much later. I felt postponed. Like the real version of us was always scheduled for another phase of life. After the promotion, after the kids were older, after things settled down. They never really do.
There were moments, small ones. She'd start a story and stop halfway when I checked the clock. She'd sigh when I said, "Let's talk about it tomorrow." I thought I was being calm, reasonable. I didn't understand that tomorrow was quietly erasing us.
I remember one night clearly. The kids were teenagers. The house was finally quiet. I sat beside him on the couch. Not close, but close enough. I said, "Do you ever think about us anymore?" He didn't answer right away. Not because he didn't care, because he didn't know what I meant. That hurt more than an argument would have.
I didn't know what to say because I hadn't thought about it. Not intentionally, just not at all. That's the part people don't warn you about. You can love someone deeply and still stop paying attention. I told her we were fine, and I believed it.
That word, fine, can do a lot of damage. I started filling my time, volunteering, book clubs, helping neighbors, not to punish them, to avoid feeling invisible. Loneliness doesn't always come from being alone. Sometimes it comes from being unseen.
The slow cost didn't show up as a crisis. It showed up as distance, sitting in the same room doing separate things, knowing schedules better than feelings. I noticed she stopped reaching for my hand first. I didn't notice when that stopped bothering me. That's what scares me now.
I didn't want to fight. I wanted him to notice. So I waited. Years can pass while you're waiting.
The turning point wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no threats. It was a hospital room. I had chest pains. Nothing fatal, but serious enough. She sat beside the bed, holding my hand like she always had, and I realized I didn't know the woman sitting there anymore, not because she changed, but because I hadn't been listening.
I remember watching him sleep in that hospital bed, machines humming, lights dim. I felt fear and something else I didn't want to admit. Relief. Not relief that he was sick. Relief that something finally forced us to stop and look at each other. That scared me more than the doctors did.
When you think you might lose someone, the past shows up uninvited. I saw every dismissed conversation, every later, every time I chose comfort over connection. I didn't feel dramatic regret. I felt something heavier, finality.
We talked more in that hospital room than we had in years, not because we planned to, but because silence felt dangerous. I told him I'd been lonely. He didn't argue. That mattered.
There are things you can fix and things you can't. I couldn't give her back the years she felt alone beside me. I couldn't rewrite my habits overnight. What I could do was stop pretending time was unlimited.
Even after that, it wasn't suddenly better. We were older, set in our ways. Change at this age isn't dramatic. It's careful, sometimes clumsy, but it was real.
What can't be fixed is the version of us that never got to exist, the conversations we didn't have when they would have mattered more, the ease we might have kept. I mourn that quietly now.
I also mourn the woman I was before I learned how patient patience can become, how heavy. I don't blame him, and I don't absolve him either. Life is rarely that clean.
If you're listening to this and you're younger, I won't tell you what to do. I only know what I missed. I thought love was proven by endurance. Turns out it's proven by attention.
I wish I had spoken sooner, not louder, sooner. Silence can feel noble, but it can also be a slow erasure.
We sit closer now, we talk more, but time has already taken its share. We are gentler with each other because we know how fragile later really is.
There are still quiet mornings, still habits that don't change. But when I look at him now, I feel seen again. Not perfectly, but honestly.
We don't know how much time we have left. That's not dramatic. It's just true. I don't want to spend what remains assuming there will be more.
If this stayed with you, maybe that's enough. Not as advice, just as something to sit with.
We didn't almost end because of one big mistake. We almost ended because of thousands of small ones that felt harmless at the time.
And we're still here, not because we did everything right, but because we finally stopped pretending there was no cost.
That's all we wanted to say.